Hello, this is Coach Hannah with Hurricane Volleyball Club, and today we'll be talking about a 6-2. Some of the positive things about a 6-2 is that it's very consistent. At all times, you have a setter and 3 hitters. In a 6-2, your setter, your active setter, is the setter who is in the back row. There are some instances in a 6-2 where a coach might choose to use their secondary setter as their primary setter, such as in this formation here. In this instance, our primary setter, who's back row, is in the back of the court. In order for them to get to base, for them to be in a good position to set, they would have to move from here all the way here. This is a possible thing, but it requires a lot of work. The outside hitter would have to move forward. The primary setter, or active setter, would be pushing up the outside hitter. The middle, or the libero who replaces the middle, would shift. This outside hitter would shift. This secondary setter would move back. After the serve, this setter would run over here and be ready to be in position to set. This setter, who had rotated back here, would be in position to hit right side. This outside hitter would transition and be ready to hit. The second option is for serve receive for this secondary setter to stay in position. When the secondary setter is in base already in right front, it makes it very simple for the team to play out their first rotation, stay for one, and then have this setter move to right back so that they are able to be setter for the next play. So those are the 2 basic ways that the players would play out this rotation with setter movement. The one negative thing about running a 6-2 is that your setter, or active setter, the one up here, is no longer able to jump to attack the ball in front of the 10-foot line. So in this instance, if this setter, the secondary setter, took the second ball, they would have the option to dump it because they are actually in front row. Once your team has won the point, you will rotate. As you can see, our active setter that we had in our last rotation, S1, is now in the front row. In a 6-2, that means they are no longer the active setter. So S2 has become this setter who is active for the remainder of their time in the back row. If your team is serving, that would be S2, our active setter. Then what our players in the front row would do would be to stack on the net. The way that this would work is our middle would move forward to right here. This setter, the non-active one, would become a right side, and they would move to the middle of the court. As soon as the serve happens, the outside hitter would move to the outside. The middle would move back to middle, and our non-active setter would move to the right side. In serve receive, this is going to look a little bit different. As I'll draw in a second, our active setter will be pushing up our middle. Our outside hitter, who's in the back row, will shift over, not crossing this setter. If this outside goes past where this setter is, they will be out of rotation, and the other team will get the point. This middle would move, or the libero that replaces them would move to the middle, and this outside / inactive setter would move back, or drop back, or swing. The outside hitter here would stay at the 10-foot line, ready to pass. Once your team has moved into their positions, this is what it should look like. As you see, our active setter has pushed up the player in front of them, so they are remaining behind them. They are staying in rotation. They are also slightly to the side of our outside hitter, also maintaining rotation. The secondary setter, who's now right side, is slightly in front of this player, so they're okay, because originally this player was here and our setter was here. After the serve receive occurs, middle will stay on the right side for 1, outside hitter will stay middle for 1, the right side hitter would stay outside for 1. As soon as your team attacks, all of your players will shift back to their base. This is where their base should be. This is what your team should look like once you have sent the ball over the net. As you can see, our active setter has gone to right back as their base. This is the base for any setter when they are back row. We want them as close to the preferable base of right front. Our secondary non-active setter is now on the right side where they're meant to be. Our middle is in the middle, and our outside hitter is in position for the outside. Once your team has won the point and they have rotated, this is what it can look like. You may be confused. Why is our setter still here? They served in the last rotation. When another player is serving and then comes onto the court, it does not affect rotation. So your setter can already be in base, and your middle can come up to this place after they serve, or the libero who replaces them. There are 2 different ways you could do this. You could have your outside stay up here and have your middle or libero come around to this base. That's completely up to your coach. Either one is acceptable. Just know what your coach's expectations are. On the front row, nobody's where they're supposed to be. We have our outside hitter on the right side. Our secondary setter, who's a right side, is in the middle, and our middle is on the outside. While we are serving, we want to stack on the net. That helps us to get in position as quickly as possible. And it won't matter because we're not obstructing our own team's view. So what's going to happen is this outside's going to go up here because they have the furthest to go. They're going to go at the 10-foot line. The middle is going to go here. And the right side is going to stay where they are. As soon as your team makes contact, the outside's going to move into their position. The middle is going to move into their position. And the right side / setter is going to move to the right side. Then all of your players are in the proper position that they need to be in for the remainder of the play. This is what that will look like. The main thing that you'll really need to remember in this rotation is that this player is actually in this spot. Even though your setter started in this zone, they need to remember that they were in the middle. This is where the most confusion will happen during a 6-2. Your players will maintain this position and the stacking and switching until your team loses the point. Once your team loses the point, then you will go into serve-receive. Again, your main focus on serve-receive is to get as many passers on serve-receive as possible while also getting your setter into a position to be able to set up a good attack as quickly as possible. This is what that should look like. As you can see, we have 2 outside hitters rotating in the back. This outside is currently front row, while this outside is back row. What happened here was our setter in the middle needed to get to the front row. So they pulled up, pushing the person in front of them, the current right side, tighter to the net. When they did that, our middle / libero moved over from where they had been because they were our last server, but they have not crossed over where our setter is. Because if they did, if they were right here, they'd be out of rotation. Our middle, who's front row, has dropped back to the 10-foot line to pass. This is important because if this middle is also tight on the net, these 3 people each have a third of the court for serve-receive. Now, the court is manned by 4 defensive players. Everybody is going to have to move kind of difficultly for this rotation. This is our right side, but currently our outside's on the right side, and our middle is in the middle. When this setter moves over to set the ball, there's no way that this player is going to effectively get here, this player get here, and this player get here in order to make a good attack. So you have a couple of options. One, your middle could go over more and be outside for one. Your outside could be right side for one, and your right side could stay in the middle. That's your simplest way. Another way is to have your middle drop straight back, your outside to go right side, and your right side to come in behind the middle, and both run different attacks like a 1 and a 2, or a 1 and a 3, so that you can get a quick attack or a stack. Whichever option you have, your players must get to base as quickly as possible after the serve receive. Because, if you've noticed, we're very center focused in this rotation. It makes it really easy for a team to take advantage of empty spots or players coming in very quickly from other areas to try to get to those spots. It could create a lot of chaos. This is what it should look like once players get back to base after they've sent the ball over. As you can see, our setting player who is active has returned to right back. Our inactive setter who's acting as a right side has gotten to right side, middle's in the middle, outsides are outside. Pretty simple. Let's see what happens when we rotate. Now that we've gotten the point, we rotate. Our outside hitter moves to the back to serve. As you can see, our active setter is here and ready to move into this position. Our outside hitter could go either middle back or left back, depending on what your coach is wanting you to do. Be prepared for either option. If the outside hitter is to go middle back, then what should happen is this player should move forward and do a switch with the setter as the play begins, and then the outside can just move to middle back space. Our front row is already in position. This makes things rather simple. So as soon as the serve happens, our setter will move over to right back, and then these players will go to the base position that their coach has requested them to go. We are now back to where we started. If your team loses the point, then you have to go into serve receive. You have two options. Earlier, I stated that you could have your active setter not be active for this starting play until after the ball has crossed the net. See, in this position, our secondary setter is already in the ideal place for a setter to be. But now I'm going to outline what it would look like if you still want this setter to be your active setter throughout the entire play. This is what it'll look like. As you can see, our setter has pushed up this outside hitter, causing the middle to swing over, the outside to swing over, and this secondary setter, otherwise known as our right side, to swing back. Since we do not want just 3 people in serve receive, our middle hitter has also dropped back to the 10-foot line to pass. When the other team serves the ball over the net, our setter will have to move from this position all the way here as quickly as she possibly can. This right side will move out and be in position to hit from right side. This middle will be in position to hit from the middle already. This outside will need to transition off the net, but they are still in position to hit. After the ball is hit over, everybody must get to base as quickly as possible and be ready for defense. And finally, this is what your base defense should look like. As you can see, our setter has finally completed her rotations through the back row. When your team gets their next point, this setter will become the active setter, and this setter will become a right side because she will have become a front row player. This isn't as difficult as it seems once you're on the court, because your setters will remember who is now active and who is not. and they will help your teammates along with where they are supposed to go. Your coaches will also try to explain them to the best of their ability. Try to be a good, active listener, and when you're on the sideline, watch what your teammates are doing. The patterns will become very evident, and soon you'll catch on to how a 6-2 is run. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it's helped, and stay tuned for our next video on how to run a 5-1.